They thought I was just the quiet one, the afterthought, the placeholder. But when my sister tried to humiliate me at our mother's will reading, she didn't expect the attorney to hand everything to me. That moment didn't just silence her, it exposed years of lies. If you've ever been underestimated, leave comment number 1. You'll want to hear this. My name is Ellery James. I'm 34 years old, and I never expected my mother's will reading to feel like walking into a trap. It started with a letter, no phone call, no warning, just a crisp white envelope waiting on the doormat of my apartment in Savannah, Georgia. My name, Miss Ellery James, was written in delicate cursive like I was some distant cousin invited to a wedding out of obligation. Inside, a formal request to attend the reading of my mother's will in Hilton Head. 2 days' notice. That was it. 2 days to rearrange my schedule, find someone to cover at work, and mentally prepare to face a family that had long since decided I was an afterthought. Cassandra had said she'd keep me in the loop. That was back at the funeral, right before she turned her attention to the seating chart and the press release for Mom's alma mater newsletter. I barely got 5 minutes alone with Mom before they closed the casket. Now this. I sat on the edge of my sofa, the envelope still in my lap, unopened, untouched, like I could will it into disappearing. Instead, I reached into the side drawer and pulled out a cream-colored silk scarf. Faded blue stitching lined the edge. J.M., Jacqueline Moran, my mom's initials. It was the last thing she ever gave me. And somehow, even now, I was the last to know anything. I folded the scarf slowly, tucked it back in place, and stood. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I just started packing. Because deep down, I knew. This wasn't just about a will. It was about whatever they didn't want me to find out. Driving back to Hilton Head felt like slipping into a life that had always pushed me to the edges. The highway curved through pine trees and marshland, the air getting saltier the closer I got to the coast. As I passed the welcome sign, memories hit hard and unwelcome. Birthdays I spent alone in the guest room, family photos where I stood off to the side, always a little out of frame. When I finally pulled through the estate's heavy wrought iron gates, they creaked open with that slow, reluctant groan, like even the house wasn't happy to see me. I parked around back, as expected. The front drive was for Cassandra, or anyone she considered important. The housekeeper opened the door with a stiff nod. "Oh, you came." That was it. No warmth, no surprise. I stepped into the foyer, and the air hit me like a time machine. Lemon polish, lavender soap. Still exactly how Mom kept it, down to the placement of the orchids on the table by the stairs. Then came Cassandra's new assistant. Young, shiny, and dripping with inherited arrogance. She gave me a once-over like I'd shown up to the wrong country club. "Didn't realize you'd be attending," she said flatly. I held up the envelope like a badge. "I was invited?" She sniffed. "They're out by the terrace, garden attire." Of course they were. Out on the patio, everyone looked like they'd walked out of a Ralph Lauren catalogue. Cassandra spotted me and smirked. "Well, look who showed up. Didn't realize they were allowing +1s to the will reading." A few fake laughs followed. I didn't respond, just kept walking. I wasn't here to play their game. I was here to hear the truth, even if it shattered everything. I kept to the edge of the terrace, taking a seat farthest from the main cluster of chairs under the striped canopy. The air smelled like magnolia and citrus, and the hydrangeas along the stone wall were blooming with a kind of defiance that felt oddly comforting. I folded my hands in my lap, trying not to fidget. Across the table, Cassandra laughed too loudly at something our cousin Clay mumbled, and her gold bangles clinked like wind chimes in a storm. That's when I saw it. Her hand slipping into her designer tote, pulling out a folded piece of paper. She gave a quick glance around, leaned slightly toward our Uncle Ron, and slid the document beneath the table to him with the kind of fluid motion that only comes from practice. I didn't react, but my pulse quickened. That paper wasn't an afterthought. Whatever was happening here had been rehearsed. It confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't just a reading. This was a performance. Just then, the French doors opened, and the attorney, Mr. Harold Whitmore, Whit for short, stepped out into the sunroom like he was arriving on cue. Conversations faltered. Coffee cups paused mid-air. Even Cassandra turned with a hint of stage readiness in her expression. Whit gave a polite nod. "Thank you all for coming. I'll be brief and respectful." Cassandra stood slowly, brushing invisible lint from her linen skirt. "Let's just hope this isn't one of Ellery's surprises," she said sweetly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The silence afterward wasn't agreement. It was tension. Polite people don't challenge Cassandra. I stared at the tablecloth, steadying my breath. Let her perform. I had no script, but I had something better. The truth. And the patience to wait for the curtain to fall. Whit opened his leather case slowly, almost ceremoniously, like he knew what was inside would split something wide open. He cleared his throat and pulled out a single-page document with a glossy navy header. "Before we begin, I'll need a signature confirming your attendance and understanding of these proceedings," he said, handing the paper to me first. I glanced at it, puzzled. "Just me?" He nodded. "Formality." From my left, Aunt Marion leaned in and whispered, "They didn't ask me to sign anything last time." Her voice was soft, thoughtful, not alarmed, just noticing. The form didn't say much. No details, no context. Just a title, some legal phrasing, and a blank line for my name. I handed it back with a nod. "I'd like a copy, if that's all right." Whit took it gently, tucking it back into the briefcase. "Of course." The sun filtered through the striped canopy, casting soft shadows across the table. A breeze drifted by, stirring the scent of Cassandra's perfume, something expensive, sharp, and too bright for the moment. She smiled at me with feigned sweetness. "Ellery was always the most attentive daughter, weren't you?" No one answered. "Especially toward the end. So many calls, so many visits. I'm sure it meant the world to Mom." It was meant to sound generous, but her tone cracked with something sour. I said nothing, just reached into my bag and touched the silk scarf folded neatly inside. J.M., my mother's initials, stitched in fading thread. Whit cleared his throat again. "Very well. As per the notarized and witnessed last will and testament of Jacqueline Moran, dated July 9th of last year, the entirety of her estate, property, financial assets, personal belongings, is hereby bequeathed to Miss Ellery James." A glass shattered behind me. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. I already knew whose hand had slipped. Cassandra's water glass clattered to the stone floor, the shards sparkling beneath her chair like broken pretense. She didn't even try to mask her reaction. "What?" She breathed, too loudly. Her voice cracked at the edges, no longer polished, no longer rehearsed. Whit didn't flinch. "That is what the will states." You could hear the rustle of linen as people shifted in their chairs. Aunt Marion blinked slowly. No one spoke. Whit paused, then added, "However, there is a clause." Of course there was, always a clause. He lifted another sheet of paper. The inheritance is contingent upon Miss James residing in the Marine estate for no less than 1 calendar year. During that time, the property must be maintained, not sold, transferred, or altered structurally in any way. He glanced once, pointedly, at Cassandra. Additionally, Miss Cassandra Marin is barred from making or facilitating any financial or structural changes to the estate during this period. My stomach tightened, not out of fear, but out of realization. Mom had known. She hadn't just rewritten the will, she'd written a boundary. Cassandra stood up so fast, her chair squealed back against the patio stones. "This is a joke!" she snapped. Her voice was pitched high and tight. "That's not what Mom wanted." She turned to me like a blade. "You put that in her head. All those guilt trips, all those calls. You manipulated her." I didn't move. I didn't blink. Let her spiral. Whit remained composed. "These terms were written directly by your mother, signed in front of a state-certified notary and 2 neutral witnesses." "She was confused," Cassandra fired back. "You said so yourself, Marion." Aunt Marion shook her head slowly. "No, Cass, I said she was tired, not confused." And for the first time, Cassandra had nothing to say. 1 week later, I found a manila envelope wedged in my mailbox like a final insult. My name, Ellery James, typed across the front in cold, impersonal letters. Inside, a court summons. Cassandra had filed a petition to contest the will, citing undue influence and emotional manipulation of a mentally and physically vulnerable parent. I sat on my porch, the paper shaking slightly in my hands, not from fear, but from the absurdity of it. She wasn't just trying to take the house back. She was trying to erase everything Mom and I shared in those final months. But what Cassandra didn't know, what she never bothered to imagine, was that I had kept everything. Every email Mom forwarded me after her accounts were accessed without permission. Every bank statement, every voicemail, even the nurse's note about Cassandra's screaming match in the hospice room after Mom refused to sell the house. I called the legal aid clinic in Charleston, the same one I helped fundraisers for in my non-profit work. I told them the story calmly, methodically. They listened, asked a few measured questions, then said, "We'll take your case. And, frankly, you should consider filing a counterclaim for elder financial exploitation." I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But peace, I realized, sometimes requires protection. The following morning, I pulled the red folder from the bottom drawer of my desk, the one labeled Mom Final. Inside, notarized amendments, timeline notes, a handwritten letter of intent, and a DVD marked in Mom's handwriting. Just in case. I looked at the still-sealed disc for a long minute, then slid it into my bag. I wouldn't play it unless I had to. But knowing it was there, knowing her voice was still waiting to speak just once more, that gave me all the strength I needed. I didn't expect the courthouse steps to feel like a stage, but there they were. Journalists, boom mics, tripods, and people clutching notepads like they were waiting for someone to bleed. And there in the middle, perfectly lit by the morning sun, stood Cassandra. She wore soft lavender and that pearl brooch she only dusted off for fundraisers and sympathy. Her voice, trembling just enough, floated across the crowd. "I only ever tried to protect our mother." But money changes people. The reporter nodded solemnly. "We understand your sister is due to arrive shortly." Cassandra gave a small, rehearsed sigh. "Yes, she has her version. I'm sure it's compelling." That's when I knew. This wasn't just about the will anymore. This was about rewriting the story in real time, shaping public opinion before I had a chance to speak. I didn't rush. I walked up slowly, wearing a charcoal grey suit and flat shoes. Nothing flashy, just prepared. My hair was pulled back, my shoulders squared. I carried a tote, not a briefcase, because I wasn't playing their game. The crowd shifted when I stepped into view. One reporter, a woman in her 40s with crow's feet and a coffee-stained sleeve, turned to me. "Miss James, would you like to respond to your sister's statement?" I didn't say a word. I just reached into my bag and handed her an envelope, sealed, thick, and weighty. Inside, notarized letters, time-stamped bank withdrawals, screenshots of Cassandra's messages to realtors before Mom had even passed, and the hospice nurse's written affidavit. The reporter's eyebrows lifted. "Where did you get this?" I looked her dead in the eye. "My mother gave it to me. She knew this day might come." A voice rose from the back. "I can confirm that." We turned. It was Nurse Paula, still wearing her old ID badge, eyes fierce. "I was there. She was lucid. She was scared, and she knew exactly who she could trust." And just like that, the cameras turned. Not toward Cassandra. Toward me. Inside the courtroom, the tension felt like humidity. Thick. Inescapable. Clinging to every breath. The gallery was packed. Neighbors, old classmates, even people who barely knew Mom had shown up like it was the social event of the season. Cassandra stood near the front, dressed in soft blue now, a deliberate shift from lavender to sincerity. Her attorney held the original will, the one signed months before Mom got sick, and claimed it as the only valid document. The judge, a silver-haired woman with tired eyes and no tolerance for theatrics, looked unimpressed. Cassandra launched into her statement with that saccharine voice she reserved for donor dinners. "I accepted the role of executor not out of greed, but out of love. My sister appeared only after the difficult work was done, and we have concerns, real concerns, that our mother was coerced during a vulnerable time." I didn't interrupt. I just watched her spin, watched the way she gestured carefully, glanced at the jury with just the right amount of practiced ache. Then the judge turned to me. "Miss James, would you like to respond?" I stood slowly, walking to the table with nothing but the red folder in my hands. "Yes, Your Honor. I have a second will, dated 1 month after the one presented, notarized, witnessed, and I have supporting documentation, including a recorded statement from my mother." The judge motioned to the bailiff. I handed over the sealed envelope. She opened it, brows rising slightly. "Well," she said, "this is clear." The room hushed. Then the AV tech cued the video. The screen flickered. There she was, my mom, frail but calm. "If this is being played," she said softly, "it means Cassandra has tried again to undo what I chose." She looked straight into the camera. "I changed my will because Ellery didn't try to sell my house while I was still in it. Cassandra did. You could have heard a pin drop." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, the air finally shifting in my direction. And for once, Cassandra had no script left to follow. After the ruling, I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just walked out of the courthouse with the kind of calm you only earn by surviving something that tried to break you for years. The sun had shifted west, casting long shadows on the marble steps. Reporters called my name, but their voices felt far away. Cassandra didn't walk beside me. She stayed behind, shoulders hunched, lips tight, eyes vacant. Whatever performance she'd planned had unraveled in front of an audience she couldn't win back. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt nothing. And somehow, that was its own freedom. At home that evening, I found a letter tucked inside the lining of Mom's old wallet. Romy, my closest friend since college, had brought it over after helping me pack up the last of Mom's things. "Found this," she said, handing it to me carefully. "Figured it wasn't something a stranger should open." The envelope was yellowed, edges curled slightly, but the handwriting was unmistakable. "To my quiet fighter." I waited until the house was still. I sat on the porch swing with the letter in my lap, the sky dimming into that soft blue that comes just before dusk. Then I opened it. "You never needed to be loud to be strong," Mom wrote. "You stayed when others ran. You listened when others performed. I saw you. I loved you. And I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner." I held the paper against my chest, not weeping, just breathing. The kind of breath that comes after a long-held one finally lets go. The porch light flickered on. Romy brought out 2 mugs of tea. She didn't speak. She just sat beside me like she always had. And for once, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Somewhere between the sound of the wind rustling through the oak trees and the clink of Romy's mug settling on the porch railing, it hit me. This wasn't victory. It was release. The kind you don't get from winning an argument or proving someone wrong. It was deeper, quieter, like being able to breathe in your own skin without asking for permission. I looked around at the chipped paint on the banister. The flower pots Cassandra always said were too small town. The wind chimes Mom insisted on keeping even after they rusted. It all still stood, not because I fought louder, but because I stood longer. That's the thing they never expect from the quiet ones. They think silence means weakness. But silence, when it comes with purpose, can be sharper than shouting. I didn't need applause. I didn't need them to say I was right. I had the truth. I had Mom's words. And I had the peace of knowing I didn't have to explain myself to people who were never listening in the first place. And maybe someone out there reading this has been carrying a silence of their own, waiting, hurting, wondering if speaking up will make things worse. I get it. I've been there. But let me tell you this. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. Even if it shakes when you use it. If this story found its way to your heart, stick around. Because there are more of us out here, quiet fighters with stories worth telling, and together we're done letting anyone else write the ending.